get started now. And I'd like to introduce our speaker. He's a longstanding member of the Loess Hills Audubon Society, and Dr. Rex Rundquist is going to share a little bit more about the eBird smartphone application. And we'll learn some pointers tonight on using eBird and how it can assist us with bird listing and identification and keeping your own lists. And so he's got it designed to be kind of interactive as far as showing us how to get on the eBird and maybe the best way that you might use some of these, this application in your own bird watching and helping and participate in citizen science. So I'm going to turn it over to Rex. And again, if any of you wish to turn off your video, now's the time to do so. Make sure we're all muted and except for Rex, and we'll turn it over to Rex. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Dawn. First of all, I'd like to be sure everyone can see my screen and my face. Is it coming through okay?
Yes, it is for me. And again, if you want to have your view of just the speaker view, go up to your top right of your screen or scroll on your cell phone and you'll be able to get a different view. So go ahead, Rex.
Okay. Yes, my name is Rex Rundquist, and I've been cooking up a program for you tonight. I'd like to thank Loess Hills Audubon for inviting me to present to you this evening on the subject of eBird. As Dawn said, I've been a longtime member of Loess Hills Audubon, and I've been a somewhat serious birder for about 35 years, or about half my life. I was a pediatrician for about 40 years, and now I spend most of my time birding or pulling hairs out of my nose and ears. I've been using eBird for about 12 years, but I don't claim to be an eBird expert. Many of you, I'm sure, have been using it for some time as well. For those who have not, I hope tonight will be an enjoyable learning experience. For those of you who have been using it, I hope you can share some of your tips on subjects I may not cover. I put this talk together myself, and I unfortunately have no financial disclosures. I'm hopeful there will be some time for discussion at the end and that you'll enjoy yourselves. I'll start out with a PowerPoint presentation, and after that, hopefully I can project some of the eBird website for you to see a little more about what it's all about.
eBird and your owl.
Who could hear you? All right. So eBird is a highly valuable tool for recording and storing your birding data, exploring birds and bird habitats, continuing your education about birds, and helping to contribute to ongoing avian research and understanding. And it can be just a lot of fun. This is a picture of a Clark's nutcracker from Colorado last summer, and a wood duck at Bacon Creek with a nice used beer can in the background there. So here's a little overview of what I'll talk about tonight. What does it take to be a birder, birding in the past, present, and future? I'd like to briefly introduce the Cornell University Lab of Ornithology, and then into the main subject of eBird. Well, what does it take to be a birder? It requires our senses, primarily our vision and hearing, observational skills, which with experience tend to become more acute. It requires interest and time. I put in shotgun and mist tents, etc., just as an aside, which we'll go to later. References are helpful, and for most birders, some way of documentation of the birds that they identify. These are some sandhill cranes we saw last spring over the Platte River near Kearney, Nebraska, and a greater and lesser yellowlegs, which I photographed at Snyder Bend last spring. A nice comparison of the two look-alike birds. So first we need our eyes to see the bird. That's a beautiful male rose-breasted grosbeak that I photographed at Bacon Creek last spring. And at this point, I'd like to introduce bare naked birding. No, that doesn't mean birding in the buff. This is a concept, I believe, developed by this Ted Eubanks, but it was introduced to Maria and I at the Iowa Ornithological Union fall meeting in 2011 in Decorah. We actually took a field trip with the guest Ted Floyd, who was embracing this concept. And I like this quote from the article by Ted Eubanks: "Find a bird, gather as much information about its identity as possible without binoculars or field guides. Hazard a guess as to its identity, then put a glass to your eye to confirm your guess. You'll quickly become sensitized to the bird's every aspect by noting how it presents itself in life, not just cartoonish field marks of field guides, and in the ways all aspects of a bird interrelate to form a living, breathing creature." And of course, there are enhancements that most birders use, such as spotting scopes, binoculars, and cameras. But we also use our sense of hearing, listening for bird calls and songs. This is a picture of me cupping my hands behind my ears, which is actually quite an effective way to directionally hear birds and also pick up some quieter bird noises that you wouldn't hear otherwise. This is me listening to the call of an eastern towhee in Bacon Creek last spring. Hearing can also be enhanced. There's a nice article by Laura Erickson, which I put example of here. Laura was our guest speaker at the Sioux City IOU meeting, spring meeting in 2018 at Briarcliff University. You can see some of our fellow Audubon members in the back there, along with Maria and Laura. Well, birding does require observational skills. Attentiveness and perceptiveness go hand in hand in helping to absorb your environment. Birding takes patience and curiosity. Birders are often the stragglers on a nature hike for these reasons. Being adventurous, getting off the trail and exploring new areas will often enhance your birding. Birding, as with any endeavor, requires some degree of dedication and time spent. Birders should show compassion for their subjects, the birds, and respect for their safety and security in their environment. Birding, of course, requires some degree of interest, and it does require time. It also requires a desire to learn. And there are many organizations that support this learning, such as Loess Hills Audubon Society, the Iowa Ornithologists Union, Iowa Young Birders, National Audubon Society, American Bird Conservancy, Cornell University Lab of Ornithology, and many others. At one time, birders used shotguns to identify birds. This was before there were good quality binoculars or telescopes. And also John James Audubon used this method to obtain his bird specimens and illustrate them. At that time, it was shoot to identify. We still shoot some birds, but now the concept is identify to shoot so that you don't get arrested by the game warden. I'd like to take an aside here just to, in honor of Black History Month that currently going on in February, raise this problem of diversity in the birding community. Last spring, in the spring edition of the Audubon magazine, Drew Lantham had this wonderful article about the situation of diversity in birding, which if you haven't read, I strongly recommend. It's available online if you have thrown away your old Audubon journal. Drew Lantham is a distinguished professor of wildlife ecology at Clemson University and an enthusiastic ornithologist as well. Mist nets are another way of collecting bird specimens. This is primarily a technical research tool. Using mist nets requires extensive training in the handling, identification, and banding of birds and a state permit. So not something most of us use. Then on to references. And there are many references that birders use, including field guides, such as several of my own that I illustrate here, and periodicals such as Birdwatcher's Digest, Ducks Unlimited, Audubon Magazine, and many others. Other references nowadays include apps for your smartphone or podcasts on the internet. Some good ones include the Merlin Bird app by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and the Audubon Bird app by National Audubon Society, both of which are free downloads. There's also a number of podcasts about birding, including Laura Erickson's For the Birds. That's the lady I showed a photograph of earlier, and Bird Sense, which is put out by Birdwatcher's Digest, among many others. And finally, references include nowadays websites. The two that I think are really good are both by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. One is called All About Birds, and the other is the eBird website, which we'll look into more as we go along. And finally, documentation. Most birders like to keep some form of record of their bird sightings. In the old days, it was writing it down with pen or pencil on paper. Later, specific field checklists were developed. Examples of Iowa and Nebraska checklists are shown here. And many birders like to keep a life list, a collection of all the different birds they've seen throughout their birding life. Beyond this, photographs are another way of documenting birds, and nowadays also collecting audio recordings or video recordings. While documentation has taken a great leap forward in the past 20 years with the development of eBird, and this was developed by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology is a part of Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. It was founded in 1915. The founders were several gentlemen from Ithaca, among them Arthur Augustus Allen, who was a famous ornithologist at that time. He is noted for having the last documented sighting of the ivory-billed woodpecker in the Singer Tract in Louisiana in 1935. Francis Harper was an important zoologist, and Louis Agassiz Fuertes was a skillful young ornithologist and a very good bird artist as well, who was a part of the Harriman expedition to Alaska in 1899, a large expedition of scientists who went to study the natural world in Alaska. The lab is located in Sapsucker Woods Sanctuary, which you can see on this map in the northeast part of Ithaca. Ithaca is at the southern tip of Cayuga Lake, which is one of the Finger Lakes in north central New York. And Cornell Lab is a part of Cornell University, which is in Ithaca. Well, let's get on to a little more about eBird. eBird depends on a concept called crowdsourcing. And a good description of this is an accumulation of data from many sources, including scientists and researchers, but also amateur naturalists and bird watchers. It continues to be refined over time, and it is increasingly accessible to the public. Another example of crowdsourcing is the Audubon Christmas bird count, which was founded in 1900 by an ornithologist, Frank Chapman, who was also an early officer in the newly formed Audubon Society. He proposed at that time starting an annual Christmas bird census to take the place of the annual Christmas bird hunt, as they were beginning to sense that there was a decline in bird populations. Well, this now 120 some years later continues to go on for 3 to 4 days each winter in around 2,200 specific geographic areas in the Western Hemisphere, with over 60,000 annual participants. It's been useful in following trends in bird behavior over time, and that data has been collected and in the past was usually mailed out much later in a journal. eBird takes this concept a giant step further. eBird is an online database of bird observations, providing scientists, researchers, and amateur naturalists with real-time data about bird distribution and abundance, not just what people saw last Christmas. It was started in 2002 by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, mostly in the Western Hemisphere at first. It was expanded in 2008 to include New Zealand, and by 2010 it was expanded worldwide and is available currently in Spanish, French, Chinese, German, as well as English. And the bar at the bottom of the slide shows some recent eBird statistics, including documentation of over 10,000 species worldwide, over 62 million completed checklists, and nearly 750,000 eBirders on record. Well, how does one get started in eBird? My suggestion would be to go to the eBird website and take the eBird Essentials course. This is a very good introduction to how to use the application. Then download the eBird app to your smartphone, open up an account, and download the data packs. The data packs are information specific to the area that you plan to bird. For instance, they have packs on Eastern North America, but they have them for pretty much anywhere you go on the globe. And this just enhances the experience of recording your data. It has a listing of the birds that are most likely to be seen in those areas. Then go and start a checklist on your smartphone and go birding and record what you see. This is what the eBird Essentials instructional course looks like on the eBird website. And we'll try to go to that a little bit as we move along here. Well, what does eBird do? eBird automatically registers a GPS location where you begin your checklist, whether or not you have internet access. eBird automatically records a GPS path if you are traveling while you're birding. eBird automatically times your birding effort too. When you finish your birding session, you simply press the stop button, and that allows you to end the mapping and timing functions. Before you submit your checklist, you're asked to verify your location and the effort you made to identify all the birds that you were able to. Further details about your experience may be added, and this can be done at a later date. Once your details and counts are complete, the checklist may be submitted. Your bird counts and species identified can be further edited at a later time, including addition of media, be it photos, audio recordings, or video recordings. Submitted checklists are reviewed by selected eBird reviewers before they're fully accepted. Well, what are eBird reviewers, or who are they? eBird reviewers are skilled birders identified in a local birding area and chosen to review checklists. Reviews of checklists are triggered automatically by filters that are built into eBird to identify reports of unusual species for that area or unusual numbers of birds for a given geographic area during a given season. Supporting data may be descriptive photographs, audio recordings, or video data, and these are all reviewed by the eBird reviewers as well. If the reviewer happens to disagree, the submitter will be contacted by email for further information or a request that the checklist be corrected before the data can be fully accepted. I find that eBird reviews are a wonderful way of learning and should not be interpreted as a challenge to your intelligence. I think it's a very important way that data presented can be documented to be valid. And this is just a list of credits, mostly things I pulled off the internet. And this is a lovely white-winged crossbill that we had at our bird feeders for about a month last winter. So that ends my PowerPoint presentation. I would like to now see if I can pull up
Hi, Rex. We can see your screens of your websites. Now we just need you to begin on what area you're starting and maybe make the screen a little larger for us.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I had this pulled up, but must have clicked it off. Sorry for the delay. This is what I wanted to show, submitting your sightings. I'll see if I can expand this a little bit. This is about a 4.5 minute video that I think you'll find.
With eBird Mobile,
helpful.
birding has never been easier. This free mobile app works anywhere in the world, helping you quickly enter checklists while keeping track of your exact birding route, letting you just enjoy the birds. When you first install the app, you'll need to download a pack of information on what birds are expected in your region. Bird packs let you get a precise list of birds for your area, regardless of your internet connection. The app will suggest the best pack based on where you are, and you can download other packs through settings at any time. Now you're ready to start birding. Typically, you'll be entering a checklist in real time, so the app knows the date and time you're starting. I want to record my track, so I'll leave that on. Tracking is a great feature that allows eBird to fill in where you're birding, how far you travel, and how long you're birding for. It keeps track so you don't have to. All right, you're all set. Now click Start Checklist. When you start a checklist, eBird uses your current GPS location and your bird packs to provide a list of expected species that are likely to be in that area at that time of year. You'll fill in this checklist as you go. Once you've found a bird you know, by sight or sound, the fastest way to add it is to type right here in the quick entry bar. Let's start with 2 mallards out on the pond. Type the number of birds, 2, and the species, mallard. Then select the species from the checklist, and you're all set. It's that easy. Let's enter a few more sightings the same way. There's 5 Canada geese foraging in the grass. Sounds like there's a red-tailed hawk calling nearby. And there's an osprey eating a fish. And a great blue heron flying overhead. You can see all the birds you've already tallied by switching to the checked view. This is particularly helpful for adding more sightings to a species. For example, you see 3 more mallards. Number 3 times, and you're all set. You'll notice some birds have these icons next to their names. These show whether a bird is infrequently reported or unreported for that region and time of year. By tapping a species name, you can make changes to your tally or add comments about the bird's field marks, its behavior, the habitat you saw it in, or anything else you find interesting. This is especially important for those rare and unusual sightings. You can see where you've been by clicking here to review your track. When you're finished birding, tap Stop. If you have an active track, eBird will ask you if you're done birding. Tap Stop Track to confirm. Now it's time to review your checklist. The first thing you'll need to do is add your location. The best way to do this is to use the map. It's important to choose a location that accurately represents where you were birding. You can either choose an appropriate existing location or create a new location by tapping on the map. In this case, you are birding at Sapsucker Woods, so choose that location. Next is info about your birding outing. This is what makes eBird tracking great. Tracking has already defined your checklist type based on whether you were moving or stationary. Tracking also fills in the duration and distance traveled. You can change your checklist type and edit the other fields if you need to. Before you can submit, eBird asks if you're submitting a complete checklist of the birds you were able to identify. Complete checklists are eBird's way of knowing you've identified and reported all of the birds you saw or heard to the best of your ability. It's not possible to detect every single bird. Nobody can do that. As long as you've listed all of the species you could identify, then check yes. You can also enter comments about your birding experience. You can document the weather, other animals you saw, or any other fun memories. Last but not least, you can review the species you reported. When you're ready, click Submit. Congratulations, you're an eBirder. You're now part of the largest birding community in the world.
So I think that is an example of how excellent this eBird Essentials course is, and it's free. So now I'm going to pull up the eBird website. And this is a beautiful opening page at the website. They always have a different bird each day from around the world. And if you have an account, your personal stats are listed here on the left. They have recent news on this page and examples of top photos, audio recordings, and rarities around the world. You can actually submit sightings on the website as well. This looks a lot like the smartphone app that you just looked at. There's an excellent area called Explore, where you can explore species or explore regions. And there are many ways to do this. You can just type in a species or an area that you might want to go birding, and it will show you hot spots for that particular area. There's also a specific spot here where you can explore hot spots. Species maps, I think, is a real interesting area, and I'm going to show you an example of some animated species maps. You can look up photos and sounds. There's bar charts to tell you what to expect at certain times of the year for various species. They have a number of interesting other ways to explore eBird down here. One called Top 100 lists top eBirders in your region. So you can type in a region like, let's say Woodbury County. And show top 100. And I come up as number 8 in Woodbury County for 2022. I have 2 listings so far this year and 12 species identified. Also, you'll see that some of these are highlighted in blue. That means that you've set up a personal page on eBird. I'll show you what mine looks like. So you can put your photograph. It shows where you've birded. This is currently where I've birded in Woodbury County, and the colors indicate the number of species that you've seen in various parts of the county. Say, you can zoom out on that to the state or the country or the world. And you can see that I've birded in Alaska, Mexico, Ecuador, Costa Rica, Ireland. Another thing I wanted to show you that I actually had never done before today is this photo and sound quiz. You can set up your own quiz for a given area, and you can do your quiz either by photographs or sounds and test yourself. Now, this is what I think is a really fun aspect of the eBird experience, and it's called abundance animation. So you can click on this and it will show you the records of a particular bird species throughout the year. And it's just fun to see, especially the long distance migrants. This is barn swallows on a world map. And you can see over here the months that it's going through. And you're able to pause and go at any time of the year if you want to look at it in more detail. I don't know if any of you have your audio on, but if anybody'd like to call out a species, I'd be glad to put in another one.
How about an upland sandpiper?
Okay. So this is primarily a Western Hemisphere bird, as you can see. We'll just turn on the animation. So in the winter, it's in Argentina, comes up and breeds in North America and heads back. I'll see if I can pause it here. So the majority are in the center of North America during breeding season, especially in the sandhills of Nebraska and up into South Dakota.
Rex, could you try a red knot?
Sure. So this is a worldwide species. This is a bigger map, so it's a little hard for me to stop and go on it in this projection, but you can see it moves south in the winter and in large numbers in Alaska, Siberia, and northern Canada in breeding season. Was there a particular month or area you'd like to look at for the red knot?
No, I just had seen a really good program on nature
Yeah,
on PBS about the red knot, and it was just so interesting.
you see that it moves primarily along the coast. We don't
Mhm.
have any red knots. It'd be a rarity in our area,
Mhm.
but they are reported occasionally.
It relies on what crab? What kind of crab? Blue? What kind of crab is it?
Oh, the horseshoe crab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In order to survive, so it's interesting. Thank you.
Anybody else? Try one more bird if you'd like.
Rex, could
Yeah.
you do the Hudsonian godwit?
Okay.
This is Sharon.
Yes. So this looks like primarily a Western Hemisphere bird. So in the summer, it Gets up around Hudson Bay a lot. Appropriate name. And then goes to Argentina, it looks like, in the summer, or in our summer. So this is fascinating stuff to me.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have some comments or questions? I think I've about exhausted my information that I had. Or any tips you might have for eBird.
Rex,
Yes.
this is Bill. One way I've used this website before, I was going to go out to the Rocky Mountains. I wanted to find white-tailed ptarmigans. So I, in the explore species here, I typed in white-tailed ptarmigan and clicked on it, and it'll show the accumulation of eBird reports for white-tailed ptarmigans that they have in their database. And that will give you an idea of where you want to look. I was in Wyoming, and I found that there probably aren't many left in Wyoming, but across the line in Colorado, there were a number of places you could go to see the ptarmigans.
Right. And I don't know if you can see that I'm trying to identify those areas right now. But as you zero in on the range map, you'll actually get to a point where you see the hot spots. There we go. This is a little rare species, so it's hard to get to the hot spots. Let me see if I can put another one in that might be more easily seen. Yeah, but it gives you great looks at the birds and their various plumages. So you were successful in using that? Did you find the bird?
Yeah, well, I found we were going to the Medicine Bow Mountains, and I found that they're not likely there. Even, and we spent part of a day looking for them, didn't find any. But the next year when we went out there, we went someplace in Colorado where there's more reports of them, and there we did find them when we were hiking above the tree line.
And that was where?
That was on Flat Top Mountain in the Rocky Mountain National Park.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
where we did find them then.
Yeah, that's
And that was eBird information that told us that, you know, we should be in Colorado rather than adjacent Wyoming.
right. Yeah, it's terrific up-to-date information at your fingertips.
And I'm sorry, which area was this that you're doing this search at? Which part of eBird did you go to?
Oh, it was in the explore species,
Okay.
but you could also do it in the explore regions.
Do you mind maximizing your screen so we can see the whole page instead of
Yeah, yeah.
surrounding stuff? Thanks, Rex.
Thank you. So let's see, I was gonna see if I could do the range map for the chestnut-sided warbler. I guess it's not doing what I was hoping it would, but you can see that I'm up in the Arrowhead region on the north shore of Minnesota, Lake Superior. And they're quite dense there in the summer. That's one of their main breeding areas. Any other areas you'd like to explore? Regions, species, or anything else?
Why don't you try a region, explore region, so they can see. If you were going to go to a certain area, it would tell you what birds you might expect to see there.
How about the Baja California?
Dawn.
Well, it doesn't seem to be pulling up a map for some reason. Let me try another one.
There's a map icon on the top right. Is that what you have to hit?
Where's that?
The upper right-hand corner,
Up here?
the lower. Lower.
Oh, I've got the
In the blue border there, to the right of where you're at, right there.
right here. Oh, thank you. It was covered up by. Okay, so now the colors on these hotspots, you can see deals with species counts. So the more red you get, the higher the species count, the more on the blue end of the spectrum, the lower count. So down here at the Cabo San Lucas area, there appears to be a good over 300 species reported there. And those are the hotspots down there. And if you hover over the hotspot, it'll show what it is. So Estero, San Jose, 287 species there. Where a blue one has 64 species. Why don't we go to Iowa? So looking at our area here in Sioux City, Bacon Creek Park has 202 species reported, 637 checklists. Go down here to Owego Wetland, 205 species, 305 checklists. Ponca State Park, 249 species, almost 750 checklists.
Why don't you click on view details of one of those and see what's there?
This is Ponca, I think, isn't it? Yeah. So you can see when it was the species was last seen or first seen or high counts. Any particular species you want me to pull up?
No, but somewhere there's a function. If you were going to go to this location, you could print out a checklist in advance that you wanted to have a printed checklist.
Uh-huh.
And I don't. You can tell in this screen here, they're out of order. They're in the order they were seen or reported.
Right.
But somewhere there's a place where you could actually print a checklist for this location, so you could have that in hand when you're in the field.
Yeah, I've never done that. Let's see. Oh, that's my checklists.
And if you're using the smartphone app, you're less likely to really want a paper checklist, but it's possible that you might want to print one.
Yeah, well, this targeted species looks like it might be handy. Gives you an idea of the frequency of the species that have been seen there.
Yeah.
In February. No, it's in February. We'll pull that up and see what that does. Yeah, dark-eyed juncos go way to the top.
How did they show up on 130% frequency?
That's a good question. Anything else anybody would like me to pull up?
How about Five Ridge Prairie?
Oh,
This is Dottie.
yeah.
That would be in Plymouth County.
Well, these are the sightings. 236 species reported. That's pretty good. Any particular detail you'd like, Dottie?
Pick an owl.
Any owl?
Yeah, let's do how about a long-eared or short-eared owl?
Long-eared owl for sure.
How about a long-eared owl?
Yeah, that's a little more challenging with this type of listing.
Yeah, yeah. So can't you organize that listing? Isn't there a way to organize it?
Well, it could be. Let's go to targeted species.
Just seems like there must be a way to do that.
And this
Yeah.
is Jeannie on the top right. There was something that said sort by on the top right, a drop down box.
Over here.
Wait, oh, no, lower. Oh yeah, right where your cursor is. Wait, my cursor's there. Never mind. Right, you know where it says 174 species in green on the left and said Plymouth County? If you
Yeah.
go down to turkey vulture over to the map and just right above that.
Oh, I see, right there. Yeah. Good observation, Jeannie.
Oh,
Ooh.
I have an eagle eye.
Yeah. It did just what we needed, didn't it?
It'd be nice to be able to type in long-eared owl and have it just come to the front, but I don't see.
Well, that's okay. I don't
No,
want to.
keep going down. Let's see what they got.
I
There we go.
suppose there wouldn't be
There.
as,
So got eastern great horn, snowy barred, short-eared, northern,
Ah.
no long-eared.
A short-eared owl. Oh,
No, none of them been reported either.
oh yeah, no short-eared. Huh.
You
Okay,
better get busy at finding some.
we better do that. Next bird count. Okay, thank you, Rex.
Yeah.
Fabulous, fabulous presentation.
Oh,
Just
thank you.
wonderful. Thank
Rex,
you.
could I ask a question, Rex?
Sure.
I tried to install it on my phone
Hmm.
and I was thinking it was free, but it says it's $39.99. Am I doing it incorrectly?
You must be because it is free. So
First it said,
don't buy it.
I went to eBird and it said electric rides. first. I don't know then, because I asked for a free eBird. What should I request that I want from my app store?
I would just type in eBird.
That's what I did.
Well, scroll down when you see that eBird, because sometimes there's advertisements and they do cost money. Some other ones that are knockoffs. So take a closer look when you pull up the apps and find the legitimate eBird one that says for Cornell Lab.
Okay, I'll make.
And then
I'll put
also should
Cornell
have
too.
probably that bird logo.
I found it.
I put in Cornell, I think that'll help.
One thing we haven't talked about is sharing eBird lists. And I think that might be something applicable to our outings. Rather than every person sending in a list for an outing, a single list should be generated for the outing and then shared with participants. A shared list you can use to record on your own list, but then you're not duplicating 5 or 10 times over the list for the group, which would skew the data. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah, it does.
I think I got it now too, thanks.
So
That
maybe
was
in
a
the,
question that I had too, Rex, is if there's 5 people birding and they're all on eBird and they all see a cardinal or something and they all put in cardinal, yeah, does that show up? Is that there were 5 cardinals there or just
yeah, I
one
think
cardinal?
it would. And I don't know if eBird reviewers look at that at all. But
Mhm.
if it's a common species, I would say in the great scheme of things, it probably doesn't make a huge difference in the data. But if,
Rex,
yeah,
I think in Sharon's example there, she should do just what you had mentioned and designate one person to keep the list.
right,
And then at the end of the day, they can share that with everybody. So it will update their personal lists and they will get a copy of it and everything. But it won't duplicate the data at eBird.
right. And maybe I should show how to do that. So I think it's on this page here where you share.
Just go down to manage my checklist there on the left, right there. And then pick one of your checklists.
Oh yeah, good.
And up above you, the map there is a button you can click on to
okay.
share that
Yeah.
checklist.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. So then you just put in the email of your, so you, and I've got several contacts listed here that I use commonly. So I could click on Bill and his email would come up, but you can type in an email too if you don't have them on your list. But you would need to have the email of the participants to share it. You can add
Then
them.
you have to hit that green button down below, which sometimes doesn't show up if you're doing this from your app. But you gotta
Oh.
scroll down, make sure you hit that green button there to actually share the data.
Right. Well, I'll give you an example of audio recording. Anyway, that was a red-headed woodpecker I encountered the other day at Bacon Creek.
Rex, what do you use to record audio then?
Well, that's a good question. I have an iPhone and there's an app called Voice Record, which I think works really well. And it's real easy to email a copy of the recording to my email. And then I download that to an app called Ocean Audio, just to edit it a little bit to meet the requirements of eBird. I've taken videos of birds, but eBird requires a specific format for video, which I have not figured out how to use yet. I haven't dug into it extensively though, but so I've never submitted a video, but photographs and audio I have found to be pretty easy. If you look up on eBird website, it gives instructions on how to edit and submit audio recordings and probably details on video too. I just have not pursued the video yet, but there's excellent videos. Let me go to the Explore page and oh, somebody give me an interesting species you'd like to look at.
Winter red.
Ah, I bet there'll be one from Bacon Creek. So you go to the species and it'll give you some great photos of that species at the top. But you come down here to media and there's a whole list of photos. And also audio recordings.
LNS catalog number 100872.
And then the videos are really fun to look at sometimes also. So if it's horrible weather outside, you can go birding on your computer. And actually, it's a good learning experience. You really get to look closely at some great photographs, listen to some great audio, and watch some great video too. Down here, it gives the attribution for the photos or audios or videos, and ratings for their presentation as well. Well, I'm sure there's plenty more discussion of eBird that can go on in the future, but I wanted to give a taste of it to people this evening, and I hope that I've triggered some interest.
Thanks so much, Rex, for sharing your program today on eBird and for all the interactions we've had. Are there any more questions for Rex before we wrap it up?
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Rex.
You bet.
Thanks,
night.
everybody. Take care and good night.
Very good. Good night.